down, almost touching the grass, and stayed that way. Then a clock in the house struck 4. It began all over again. I am I. It is now, and I am here. The swing moved a little, and I saw the green depths of maple leaves and farther out, the unbelievably blue sky. The Happy Hollow farm was a 165-acre tract of forested hillsides. A meadow, perhaps half a mile wide, ran through the middle of the land, and there was a cold, deep-running brook that one could hear gurgling in the marsh grass and rushes before one saw it. The house dated from the end of the 18th century. It was the classical square, 2-story clapboard building, white with green blinds. It stood back from the road on a rise partially hidden by 4 enormous maples. There was an L at the north end of the house which contained the kitchen and pantries and the hired man's room. Beyond that came the exciting part of the farm, a series of dark and rustic sheds that extended all the way back to the spring house. The place smelled of the freshly cut wood that was stacked there, of mildewed burlap, apples, damp earth, and of a whole mysterious gamut of time-encrusted things. Whenever I was found exploring the dim recesses of the sheds, I was told to go outdoors. There in the sunlight I would pretend to be occupied. I could tell by the cadence of the voices coming from inside the house when it was safe to wander back into the sheds. At the Happy Hollow farm lived Grandpa and Grandma Winnewisser with their 2 sons. Grandpa had bought the property as a kind of retirement project, after an accident with a runaway horse had made it difficult for him to walk. Up until that time, he had owned the only department store in Bellows Falls, Vermont. Grandpa's first name was August. He was a moody and violent man, subject to sudden surges of temper, when his voice shook the house with bellowed imprecations in German and English. He had no sympathy with anything that required organization, like religions, societies, and governments. According to him, any group claiming to have a common purpose or belief existed only for the mystification and exploitation of its members. Notably exempt from his condemnation were the Freemasons, whom he held in respect, perhaps because he was one himself. I remember his calling my 3 small cousins and me in from play in order to ask us if we thought there was a God. I, who was under the impression that God was one of the things adults had invented in order to manage children more easily, carefully refrained from answering. But the 3 little cousins, having been told by their respective mothers that God was real, replied in the affirmative. This was Grandpa's signal to explode. "Bah! There's no God. It's a lot of nonsense. Don't you believe it?" He was going on in this vein when my Aunt Ulla came in. With the clumsiness typical of the adult who consistently underestimates the intelligence of small children, she remonstrated with him, saying, "Oh, Father, not in front of the children, please." He's right, I thought, even more firmly convinced. It is a lie. They don't believe it. Why should we believe it? Right or wrong, he was a frightening man. His nose had been disfigured by an inexplicable operation he had suffered as a youth at the hands of his father. He had shattered the bones at the bridge of the nose with a hammer. It was not the strangely shaped and discolored nose which made him frightening, however, so much as the fact that he himself had performed the same operation on both his sons, so that they both had broken noses like his. This bothered me very much, particularly because my mother often spent 20 minutes or a half hour at a time rubbing my nose firmly between her thumb and forefinger. Young bones and cartilage, she told me, were malleable, and you had to be very careful what shape they took. I wondered privately if I was slated to be the next victim of the hammer. Throughout his life, Grandpa's interest lay in the prices of consumer goods. He knew the exact price of each grade of every object you could name, wholesale and retail, and how much it had varied from the prices of former years. Since he had spent his active life studying price lists, he continued to do it after he sold the store. On the rare occasions when his sister Fanny came to visit, Grandpa seemed really happy, retreating into the privacy of their own language, which no one else understood.